Hi, my name is Lindsey Piper. For those of you that don't know me, I am a senior at Matamidi High School currently, and I have been going to Matamidi since kindergarten, so I've really gotten the opportunity to experience the full effect of Matamidi as a person of color. So I had the great opportunity to be asked by SLC and the newly found Anti-Racism and Equity Committee today to talk about overall my personal experiences, how things that are similar to my experiences affect the overall POC community, and just talk about racism and things that have recently gone on in our world that have really impacted people like me. I am super excited that we are starting off this very first anti-racism and equity week because I feel like it is very long overdue. Just to begin, my background, so my dad is white and he is German. My mom is African American and Native American, so I identify myself as mixed race or multicultural. So right off the bat, my experience is a lot different than those that simply identify as African American. Not saying that one of us experiences it worse or better. It's just overall a lot different, and people don't really understand that, I feel, at our school. Just overall, my experience here, I often don't really feel that there is a lot of knowledge surrounding people that are like me. I feel that I'm often put into a box as I am not black enough to be identified as black, but I'm also not white. So then I get a lot of questions to like, what are you? And those questions often like take me off guard because it feels very rude in general, and I get a lot of like assumptions about what I am, rather than simply asking me in a respectful way, and actually like showing interest in what I am. I feel a lot of times people just try to put me in a certain box. So I've had a lot of trouble with that. And just to go over just personal experiences, I had a lot of trouble being a mixed kid growing up. Like when I was little, in kindergarten, I was looking at like old pictures and I noticed right off the bat that I was different. Because I actually looked at old pictures the other day when I was starting to write my college application essay, which is very similar to what I'm talking about now. So I talked about being a student of color at a predominantly white school, and I actually ended up finding a drawing of my family that I drew when I was probably like 5 or 6, and I ended up drawing me and my two siblings and my mom in brown marker and my dad in what they also called skin color marker as we grew up. So it's like the tan color that is usually the white complexion. So even like growing up, like when I was like 5 or 6, I like automatically had to deal with people calling like a marker skin color. So since I didn't fit into that color, I felt very like I was very confused as a kid because I didn't know if I should draw myself in that. Because a lot of times people did not want to associate me with being black because I wasn't enough. So I had to deal with stuff like that a lot of assumptions about what I am, to just repeat that like a lot. I have gotten everything except for what I actually am. Yeah, so basically everything that you can think of, people have assumed that I am. I had to deal with a lot of stuff like that, and then just growing up in general with not a lot of girls that looked like me, I ended up not really accepting my natural hair, so I ended up actually straightening my hair like all the time. I ended up getting it permanently straightened because I would cry a lot about how thick my hair was and curly it was because I didn't like look like the other girls like growing up in middle school when like you kind of start to go through like the phases of like what's cool, what's not cool, all that stuff. And I didn't really like accept, I would say that flat out, I didn't really accept my culture growing up. I felt that there wasn't a lot of representation of people like me growing up, so I was basically molded into what I would say the whitewashed mixed girl at school. So overall, one of the questions that I received was to describe my overall experience as a person of color at Monterey. I've had my ups and downs, times where it's like awesome, like I feel like teachers are really engaging with current events that are going on. They're talking about them. They're not just talking to students of color. They're like addressing it at the beginning of class, stuff like that. I felt like with the instances of with the George Floyd, there were a lot of teachers that like, even though we were in person school, they were sending out emails being like, "I totally understand this is a hard time," blah blah blah. I had a lot of really good support during times like those. But also, I've had a lot of negative experiences, I would say. I felt there's not a lot of representation for people like me, so there's not a lot of people that I feel like I can go to at school if something happens. I feel like a lot of times we're kind of trained to kind of go with the flow, I would say, and just sweep it under the rug like, oh, something racist happened at school, and then it's gonna go away and it's gonna be all good again. Um, so I felt there was never really a time for actually those being affected by things like that to actually speak out. When asked what things would I love to see take place at Montemayor to make things better for the overall aspect of racism and equity, just to make it a better place and more collective community, I would really love to see faculty, like all staff getting together like once a month to do like an equity training. I know that there have been different like volunteer based equity trainings for administration and such, but I feel that there needs to be mandatory things for all staff to go. I feel that it shouldn't be something that you feel like it's a volunteer thing. I feel like it should definitely be like, okay, like I feel obligated to go. Like this is important for me. It's not like, oh, I'm doing my charity work and getting it in just because it looks good and stuff like that. A goal for me is to have like all faculty be like super ready to go, really wanting and willing, make the school and overall community a lot better place for students like me. Another thing I would like to see is this may take a lot longer to do. Overall, change a little bit of the curriculum in every class to kind of steer towards just like the history of cultures of people of color. I know that in like your basic history classes, you're going to hear about Martin Luther King Jr. and you're going to hear about Malcolm X, and then you're going to hear about slavery, and then that's about all you hear about African Americans, and then also talking about all of the different cultures, not just African Americans. I think that's really important. So I really appreciated in Spanish class, Senora Gary actually ended up putting out a video where we were learning about our unit of diversity and the overall problems with like racism and inequalities. And she actually put a video up of like students of color, like similar to me, being asked questions and just videotaping their responses. And little stuff like that just goes a long way. For me, that was like the first time in a long time I've seen anything being done. So I think just adding in little things, you don't have to totally rewrite it. So it's all about POC, and little things like that would really make a difference. Also, I think we're making a really good base here starting this week, but I really think we need to just keep it going. We can't just do it once and then hope that it all makes everything super awesome again. It's gonna take time for everybody to actually be on board with stuff like this. I think it's really important that we don't just do it once, but it keeps happening. So those are some things that I would really like to see change. So just to summarize, my whole point of this video is not to just simply show negatives of how I've grown up, just to show the reality of things that I've experienced. And I definitely don't want this to go as, oh, here are all the negatives and no positives, because there are definitely a lot of things that I took away from being at a predominantly white school. I learned a lot about how I can help those in a smaller community. If there is a small amount of people of color, that I can be one of them to be a leader, and then also to further educate those that are not part of that community. And I just want to use this time to reflect on events in the past in our community to benefit as a whole. And I really encourage all of you to take the time to listen to people like me, because the unfortunate reality is that no matter how hard you can try to understand, you never will fully understand unless you are in our shoes. So I really, really, really encourage all of you to try your hardest to understand and really take the time to listen and engage in those tough conversations that a lot of us avoid because they're too hard to do. Those will really benefit you and really dig into your perspectives, and you'll learn a lot from people like us. So overall, thank you for all taking the time to listen to me today. I hope you learned something from me today, and that you continue to learn from people like me in the future. Thanks again.